Narendra Modi in Russia, new agreement to maintain risky relations in new nuclear diplomacy. On 1 June, India and Russia concluded an agreement that would begin work on the 5th and 6th reactors at Kudankulam in Tamil Nadu. The deal was finalized during Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to St. Petersburg for the 18th annual bilateral summit between the two nations and ironed out the technicalities to a 1988 Memorandum of Understanding, signed by Mikhail Gorbachev and Rajiv Gandhi for the development of nuclear energy in southern Tamil Nadu. Completion of this project would make Kudankulam India's largest nuclear park, responsible for 40% of India's total nuclear energy capacity. Although the original envisioned a total of 8 reactors at the Indian site, a subsequent negotiation in 2008 reduced the number to 6. No size of the reactor had been mentioned in the agreement but was mutually understood to be the 1000 megawatt Ver-1000. In 2014, Russia offered its latest generation 3 plus Ver-1200 for future Kudankulam installations, but this suggestion was nixed by India as there were no working models of the design. The first Ver-1200 reactor became commercial just 3 months ago at Novovoronež. The deal for the last 2 reactors at Kudankulam comes at an interesting time in international nuclear politics. Rosatom has been strongly pushing nuclear exports over the past 5 years and secured agreements in several countries such as Hungary, Bolivia, Argentina, Indonesia, Turkey, Egypt, Nigeria, Algeria, Bulgaria, Finland, and others. As the only company in the nuclear sector that is capable of offering the full spectrum of services from mining to reprocessing, Rosatom has a powerful advantage over its competitors in new markets. However, nuclear sales come with financing agreements, and it has been questioned if the Russian state-owned company can indeed afford to float such lines of credit. In fact, Rosatom had offered to partner with India in fulfilling its agreements for probably similar concerns. This deal confirms valuable additional business for the Russian nuclear giant when it needs it most, especially considering the short period of 10 years for the $4.2 billion loan Russia has extended India for Units 5 and 6. The finalization of Kudankulam 5 and 6 also comes on the heels of India's decision to proceed with 10 indigenous 700 megawatt reactors if foreign suppliers cannot be relied upon to assist with India's nuclear aspirations. If Delhi does succeed in streamlining the indigenous route, a valuable customer with enormous needs would be lost to the international market. Despite its frustrating vacillations, India still remains one of the hopes of a nuclear renaissance. It is also hoped in some quarters that indigenous nuclear development will give India additional leverage to force its way into the nuclear suppliers group. The emergence of a parallel market in which Delhi can set its own rules while broadly following international non-proliferation and safety protocols is a threat to the Western-led international nuclear regime. Although this is no more than a fantasy, it is hoped that taking even small steps towards such reliance will soften the stand of the nuclear cabal. Given the new mantra of Make in India and Modi's emphasis on developing Indian industry, it is not inconceivable that a few benefits are also seen in domestic Indian nuclear industry. There is no clear information yet as to what the cost of Kudankulam 5 and 6 will be. The first 2 units were built for 17,270 crores, but the price for the third and fourth units skyrocketed to 39,747 crores. The agreement for the 5th and 6th units commits Russia to a loan of approximately 27,000 crores to cover the construction costs of the reactors, but reports make no mention of what the total cost is likely to be. If the agreement on Kudankulam 3 and 4, in which India secured a $3.4 billion loan towards construction costs, is any indicator, the last 2 Ver units at the site are likely to cost around 51,000 crores. As usual, India's Nuclear Power Corporation, NPCIL, will construct the plant with guidance from Russia's Atomstroy export. No information has been released on the time frame for Kudankulam 5 and 6 to begin commercial operation, or for that matter, the earlier 2 units. The agreement for the 5th and 6th units follows quickly on the heels of the agreement for Kudankulam 3 and 4. The infusion of 2 more foreign reactors will not salvage India's moribund nuclear energy program, but it comes at a time when more and more people are asking questions about India's relations with Russia. While Delhi is perceived to have drifted towards the United States, Moscow flirts with Islamabad to India's chagrin. Despite all the diplomatic packing peanuts, defense, technology, agreements have formed the bedrock of India-Russia relations since the time of Joseph Stalin, and the new Kudankulam reactors will give flagging relations a shot in the arm. As long as cooperation in the strategic realm remains strong, both Moscow and New Delhi will be able to weather any storm, since their relations are not based on a sense of community or shared international vision. It also seems clear now that Russia will be exempted, de facto, from India's asinine nuclear liability regime. The argument for the exemption is that laws cannot be applied retroactively, though such common sense has not always prevailed in India, and the Kudankulam Agreement and the subsequent renegotiation were both concluded before the Civil Liability for Nuclear Damage Act, CLNDA. As analysts have pointed out, by reopening the Kudankulam deal to accommodate the CLNDA would provoke Russia into demanding renegotiation of reprocessing rights, the implementation of full-scope safeguards, and showing a greater restraint in nuclear cooperation or technology transfer. Russia has already substantially raised the price of its reactors to allow for India's convoluted workaround of its liability law. Russia remains the only country that has committed to developing nuclear power plants in India despite the CLNDA, albeit no new agreement has been concluded and the reactors presently under construction are still grandfathered into the 1988 accord. India's early optimism in face of international concern for its liability law now seems hollow and self-deceptive. A good experience with Kudankulam is therefore important to retain India's only foreign nuclear vendor.